All right, welcome to the StarCommand Podcast, College Football Edition. Here with Alan to bring you all the things college football. If you could, before we get started, hit the like and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend. Help us to get our name out there. Shoot us a comment if you agree with what we said. If you disagree with what we said, we'd love to hear from you. So, Alan, we're closing in on a pretty close to over halfway through the college football season. What are we, week 8 or week 9? So we only have
Week 8.
yeah. So we only have about 4 or 5 weeks left of actual college football. We decided to do some updating to our first podcast where we talked playoffs and Heisman Trophy candidates. So let's kick it off with the Heisman Trophy candidates. I am in the camp that the only two candidates are Ashton Gentry and Travis Hunter, right? If it was up to me, it would be Travis Hunter, solely because if it's the best college football player in the country, the guy that plays both sides of the field, here's some of his stats, right? He's got 51 receptions for 604 yards, 6 touchdowns at 11.8 yards a clip. And on the defensive side of the ball, he has 18 tackles, 12 of them are solo, 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and 3 passes defended, right? He is your number 1 receiver and your number 1 corner, and it's not even close. Like, if you're talking best college football player, that's the best. Now, what Ashton Jeffrey is doing is sensational because he's going to break Barry Sanders' record, and he's going to do it in less carries. He's only got 126 carries. The year that Barry Bonds did it, he had 344. He's already got 1,248 yards rushing.
Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders had 2,628 rushing yards. So he's only 1,400 yards away from him, and he's got a third of the carries, right? He's averaging 9.9 yards a carry, whereas Barry Sanders only averaged 7.6. He's already got 17 touchdowns, where Barry had 37 that season. So, I mean, he's on pace to break Barry's record and at a historical clip. So I wouldn't be mad if he got it. What are your thoughts on that? Who else do you like that you think you could put in there that really has a Heisman chance?
So those two, talking about those two, Travis Hunter already has one more touchdown than he had last year. So we knew he was a stud last year. He's 6 receptions shy of how many receptions he had last year. So he's going to bust through performance. He's gotten better. You compared Genty to Barry Sanders. Well, how about Hunter and Charles Woodson when Woodson won the Heisman?
Right.
Charles Woodson had 8 interceptions. And Hunter's only got 2, right? So he'll probably add 2 more, at least 2, 3 more to that, be right at 5. Woodson had 6. Charles Woodson had total 4 touchdowns. He had 2 receiving touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, and a punt return touchdown. Well, Travis Hunter already has 6 touchdowns.
Right.
So more touchdowns, impactful players, right? Charles Woodson only had 12 receptions that year. And as you said, 51 receptions for Travis Hunter. So again, just blowing that mark out of the water. Charles Woodson was a better tackler. He had 43 tackles. Travis Hunter only has 18. So there's the difference. Travis Hunter is more production offensively, a little bit less interceptions. It doesn't tackle as much, but puts the ball in the end zone more. And if Charles Woodson was able to beat out Peyton Manning that year, and that was at 98.
Right.
Then
and Peyton was putting up historical numbers that year.
Yeah. And then I think that Travis Hunter can outdo a running back who's, having a milestone year as well.
Correct.
So definitely in both their teams are winning. I didn't think Travis Hunter would have a chance in this because I thought Colorado would be 3 and 3 right now, 2 and 4. And numbers really wouldn't matter, right? But they're 5 and 1. And is that right? Colorado's 5 and 1?
No, they're 5 and 2.
I believe they are.
5
and 2. Yeah, because it's week 8. Yep, 5 and 2. Okay, yes. But they're 5 and 2, competing for the Big 12 championship, and right there. And same thing with Boise State. Boise State's a playoff team as of today, and they keep winning. these guys are gonna be there, you know. So a
Most
couple
definitely.
dark horses, like we call them dark horses. So those two guys we talked about, we I don't think anybody would argue that they're the best two. So we kind of talked about what two quarterbacks, the guys that usually win these awards. And really for me, it just was looking at the two guys that are undefeated and are leading their conference, and that's Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon Ducks, and Cam Ward of the Miami Hurricanes. Those two guys, if they're on their pace to take their teams to conference championships, are putting up the numbers. Now, when you compare their numbers, Cam Ward is heads above Dylan Gabriel.
Most
Cam
definitely.
Ward has 500 more passing yards, 8 more touchdowns, total touchdowns. I mean, that's 27 total touchdowns versus 19. Cam Ward 27, Gabriel 19. That's huge. If you rack that out over 5 more games, you're going to be looking at 42 and 26. It's going to be a huge difference.
Right.
So but again, it's going to be about those programs continuing to win and be up there playing for conference championships.
Right. And Miami's looked a little shaky as of late. Every game they've played and now it's not Cam Ward's fault, right? Their defense is not holding up their end of the bargain. I mean, the kid's throwing for 300, 350 yards every game, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. And he's having to do that to keep them in these games because the defense is giving up just as many points as they can score. So I'm going to throw a couple of dark horses out here for you, right? We'll talk a little bit more about these two teams going forward when we switch gears to the playoff. But what about Bryson Daly, the Army quarterback, or Blake Horvath, the Navy quarterback? Right now, they don't have
I
great
love
passing
it.
numbers. Traditionally, these two schools run the triple option, so they have running quarterbacks. But you're talking about two teams that are never in a position to be in a playoff, and they've got both of these guys have their team in a position to be in the playoff. If they can knock off Notre Dame, I think that they should have some serious Heisman consideration for that, right? And Navy's got their shot this week. But so you've got Bryson Daly's he's 27 of 47, 13 yards a clip on average per pass. He's got 7 passing touchdowns, 19 rushing touchdowns to go along with 909 rushing yards. Blake Horvath is a little bit of a better passer, 52 of 84 at a 61.9% completion percentage. He's got almost 1,000 yards at 972, 12 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns, and another 621 rushing yards. Now, these programs don't get the notoriety that the Miamis and the Oregons and the Colorado now with Dion there, and Boise State because of Ashton Gentry is getting a lot of coverage these days, right? They don't get the major coverage because they're service academies. It's the least of the athletes that go there. It's the guys that are going to go serve our country after 4 years and not go to the NFL most likely, right? Um, so I think if both of these schools or either one of these schools are able to beat Notre Dame, I don't I don't truly believe either one of these kids will get an opportunity to win the Heisman, but I think they should be in New York to at least be there for the ceremony. Like the season that these kids are putting up.
I love I love it. If one of those goes undefeated, if one of those programs can beat Notre Dame and then in return beat each other,
Right.
twice, which may happen. Yeah, absolutely. You know, if they run the table, you get an undefeated quarterback and putting up both rushing and passing yards. That was
Right.
that was awesome. Those stats. I didn't realize that. I was looking at my phone, checking that as you were talking. Like, what? Wow, those
Yeah,
are good
and
stats.
that's because when we decided to do this, I was like, the easy way would be to go with these guys that are flashy, but
Yeah, like I did. I
we've
took the
got
next first two top quarterbacks.
right. Well, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? If we're talking about true contenders, those are the true contenders, right? But I was looking through the list of people that got the mid-season Heisman voting over on ESPN.com, and these two guys had actually gotten some votes, and I was like, let me check out their stats. Let's see what they're about. I mean, Army and Navy are undefeated. I mean, Roger Staubach win a Heisman Trophy playing for Navy? So it's not
He did. He
unheard
was
of.
back. Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time ago. It's before mine and yours time, but I mean, the truth of the matter is they're carrying these programs. These aren't schools that go undefeated, right? These are schools that everybody sits around and watches the Army Navy game at the end of the college football season because that's the last game before bowl season starts and playoff season starts. It's something to do on a Saturday afternoon at the end of the college football. But that game's going to actually mean something this year. It's going to have big implications into the college football playoff. And they might play twice in back-to-back weeks. Once for the conference championship game, and then once for the regularly scheduled game that's not a conference game. It's not even slated as like a part of their record, really. So it's more of an exhibition game type thing. And so it'll be interesting to see if they're able to run the table and then face each other in a conference championship game, what kind of Heisman consideration these guys get if they keep putting these numbers up.
Yeah, I'm looking at Army's schedule right now. They play Notre Dame November 23rd, so that's the weekend before Thanksgiving. So
Right.
they'd get Notre Dame the weekend before Thanksgiving, University of Texas San Antonio Thanksgiving weekend, and then turn around and play Army, or excuse me, play Navy the second week of December. So, man, a huge little end of November, beginning of December for that program, and then vice versa. Navy's going to have the Notre Dame game, and then a couple weeks off to play turn around and play Army again. So
Right.
yeah, that's just awesome. I like the fact that these teams are very solid. They're not just squeaking wins out.
No, they're blowing
They're
people out. They're
going in
like
and really,
guaranteed on the ticket.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So, but speaking of playoff implications and what these guys have done to bring Army Navy into that, we put together a little 12-team playoff at the beginning of the season before we'd seen anybody play. I think there's a couple of those teams that each of us were like very confident about and saw good things from, and they started off slow, and they've kind of come back around and look like they could start contending maybe here late in the season if it's not too late for them. But I keep watching all of these shows. Right, we're 2 weeks away. Election night is when the first college football playoff poll comes out, and I see all the guys on ESPN doing the playoff calculator. If this team beats this team, it raises their probability to this much. But if they lose to this team, it lowers their probability to this. Um, and so I thought it would be interesting for us to go back through and kind of realign our playoff predictor and see at this point in the season, right before the first college football playoff poll is going to start, who do we think is going to be in based on the eye test and everything that we've seen so far this season?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. So I think really, if the playoffs were to come out today, your one seed would be Oregon, and the last team in would be Boise State.
Right.
Your four conference winners that they're projecting, people winning the conference right now, Oregon, I think that changes. I think that they will not be the one seed. I think Ohio State gets them again in the Big Ten championship. I think so. That's going to flop. Ohio State's going to jump in and be 2, 3 seed, and Oregon would replace them as the 6, 7 seed, 5 seed, even first team out basically, because I think that'll be a great game again. And then I think Georgia holds on. Who knows who wins between Georgia, Tennessee again in the SEC championship? But one of those teams is going to be the 2 seed
Right.
when they get their rematch. And then the way everything else works out, I think you're going to have, if it were to start right now, you would have 10. This is the list of the SEC teams: Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, LSU. Is that it? Am I missing
Texas
somebody?
A&M.
Georgia, Texas. They're not in right now.
Oh yeah, because they're not ranked high enough right now. No, but
Yeah, they're not in. So yeah, just four. And when we started, I can't remember yours, but I had 5 SEC teams. You might
I
have as
think I had
well.
I
That
think I
was
either had 5 or 6. So
Yeah. Um, so that's the way that's lining out. The ACC, I also see right now they've got Miami projected. They're leading the conference right now.
mm-hmm.
I project them to not be the automatic bid. I think Clemson beats them in the ACC championship. So I think Clemson gets in there as 3 seed, as the number 3 seed, because they would be higher ranked than the Big 12 winner. And so that'd be your two ACC teams, Clemson and Miami. And then I think BYU is going to get in there in the Big 12.
I do
Iowa
too.
State Iowa State's ranked right now. They would be the number 4 seed,
Right.
automatic bid. But I BYU. I like them. I like what they're doing this year, and I think that they win that Big 12 championship, and they get the 4 seed. Which would be interesting because that Big 12 loser, if it's BYU, Iowa State, you probably still get in as the 11, 12 seed, right?
Maybe.
And then so I'll do those conferences. What do you got on Big Ten? What do you got happening? I know I kind of talked about, but how many Big Ten teams you got in there? And then what's your at large?
I got one, two. I have three Big Ten teams, and none of them are named Ohio State. I think,
Ooh,
yeah. I think Ohio State's defense got a little bit exposed against Oregon. I'm not saying they're not going to beat up on the teams they're supposed to, like the Nebraska coming up this week or whatever. But I think either Penn State or Indiana could possibly beat them and give them their second loss. So that's actually who I have. I have Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana in from the Big Ten.
so do you then you have Oregon being the number beating whoever
Yes,
that is
being
they face off in the
yes,
championship,
yeah. I think
being
Oregon
the
wins
automatic
out.
bid?
Yeah, I've got
Nice.
Texas, Georgia, and Texas A&M from the SEC.
So you're not on my pick for LSU this weekend, then you think A&M is going to beat LSU,
I think that they
obviously.
could. Yeah. And
Well,
then
good. We'll talk about that one because I mean that we did talk about this prior. A&M has you've seen with your eyes what A&M looked like, and I've with my eyes LSU. I think LSU's getting better,
I
but
think
we'll see.
yeah, I think LSU's getting better, but I still think that their defense is can be their Achilles heel. Whereas with A&M, they've got probably the best defensive line in the country. That Scobie kid is playing out of his mind. And it'll be interesting. I was really just kind of doing this. I wasn't even thinking about the Texas A&M and LSU game that we were picking. I was trying to figure out who I was going to put in because I feel like the SEC is cannibalizing each other as we speak, right? As
Right.
now they're not undefeated, but they're undefeated in the SEC, and that's Texas A&M and LSU. So somebody's going to have a loss after this week in the SEC, and somebody's going to have their second loss of the season. So they're probably going to be out. At this point, Georgia is the only two-loss team that I see really getting in, and that's only because their first loss was to an Alabama team, then they beat Texas. Their second loss will be to Texas in the SEC championship game. The way that I'm looking at this, but so then I've got Clemson as well winning the ACC. I do have Miami making it in, and I have SMU making it in.
Look at that SMU creeping back in. I'd like to see
I
it. That made me look good for
well,
my projection.
they've only got one loss, and they may make it in because they don't have to play in the ACC championship game. Like they'll have one loss, and it'll be early enough in the season. They've looked good since then, blowing a lot of teams out, beating who they should beat. And if they don't have to play the ACC
If that's
championship
gonna
game,
if that's going to happen, they need Boise State to lose or a one-off game, right? Have an upset loss somewhere, and then they're going to have to need that Big 12 to not get two teams in probably, which means
um, and
Iowa State.
I don't have two Big 12 teams in here. I have BYU making it. I do have Boise State making it. As I feel like that if they went out, their only loss of the season being that Week 1 loss to Oregon, that they kept it close. They're your group of five. They're your next conference champion to make it in or whatever. But my final team that I have in, and I have two of them really, but I have a slash in there is Army Navy. I feel like one of those two teams makes it to the college football playoff this year.
So that's a lot. So you got Boise State making it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Boise State's in.
Yes.
You got Penn State, you got A&M, you got Tennessee,
Hmm. No, I don't have
Oregon.
Tennessee.
Oh,
I don't have
Tennessee. Okay, okay, okay. There's the open spot. Okay, gotcha. There's the free
yeah.
spot. Okay. I was like, hold on, I'm counting 13. Okay.
Well, and I do have 13 because I have Army/Navy, and I don't know which one of them it is that makes it, but I feel like one of them has to. Like it's too magical of a season for the two of them for not one of them to make it. So
And you know who we didn't mention?
who's that?
Notre Dame.
Well, Notre Dame's not going to make it if Army or Navy make it because the only way Army or Navy make it is one of them has to beat Notre Dame.
Right. But neither, with this projection, that's how much credit we're giving the Army Navy teams
You know
because
who
neither
else?
one of us think that they're going to win both those games.
You know who else we neither one of us mentioned? Alabama.
Uh, yeah, that's even bigger than Notre Dame. Not one
Right.
row tide in this. Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Be the first ever college football playoff with no Alabama in
That's wild.
it. And that's
Yeah, they got a tough
what
road.
would be even more wild about that stat is it would be the an expanded version of the playoff, and they're still not able to get in. Go
Oh,
from four.
every single Alabama fan, every row tide person out there was,
They're going to
oh,
burn the
12
whole
team
state
playoff.
down.
We are in. We're in. They were not, they were worried about like what seed in the 1 through 6 are we, right?
Right.
Not worried about, we're definitely in every year. And then boom, you guys got a lot of work, get your work cut out for you this year.
Yeah. So, man, I think it's going to be interesting these next 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it is that we have until the end of the season to see how all this plays out. I think that like there's just so much chaos surrounding this playoff bracket. It makes college football so exciting at this time of year right now. Like way more exciting than
Absolutely.
it's been in a long time. Because usually by now you know who the top four teams are. You're just checking to see if somebody happens to have a slip up and somebody else can sneak in. And you still have that element of it, but now it's expanded so it's like it can just go 1,000 different ways like that. And it's exciting.
Absolutely.
So again, if you guys would like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and shoot us a comment. Who do you think's going to make it? Who do you think's not going to make it? Where were we right? Where were we wrong? Let us know. We'll respond. And with that, the Star Command is out.